Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us again on the V Squared Creative Podcast. I'm Toby Brockner, and I am joined today by Stephen Cilley from Ataraxis PEO, right? Ataraxis PEO, is that the
Correct.
formal name of the company?
Yeah.
Good deal. So Stephen has graciously agreed to join us today to talk a little bit about what he's up to, what Ataraxis is up to, and we may throw in some marketing and business development type of tips and conversation into this whole thing. But Stephen, thanks for joining me. I appreciate your time.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks for having me.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are, where you're from, what you're doing, and that kind of a thing.
So I've been in Boise now in our business here. I've been here for about 20 years and started Ataraxis in 2009. My background before that was insurance claims and risk management. Had a claims adjusting company and risk management company for about 15 years. Got into that because of my father. Okay. So grew up always not wanting to be an insurance adjuster, and then ended up in the industry. So
that's probably pretty common when you're 8 or 9 and somebody says, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" I doubt insurance adjuster is up there.
Correct. In fact, my answer was always not exactly not that. I don't want to be an insurance adjuster. That's what my dad does. But it was a good time working with my father for as long as we got to work together. So
how did you make that jump then from? And tell us first what Ataraxis does and what you guys do, and then tell me about how you made that jump and why you made that jump.
Sure. So Ataraxis is a professional employer organization, a PEO. What we are is we're an outsourced partner for businesses for all the administrative duties of being an employer. So all the HR and the benefits and the payroll and the work comp, all those things. What we essentially look to do is partner with a business to help them be more efficient and more successful by running this part of the business better. It's a cost center for a business. It always is. No one's ever going to make money doing this in their business. And so if you can find ways to outsource and focus on your business, then that allows you to make more money. And also making sure that you do it correctly or have it done correctly keeps you protected.
Yeah, absolutely.
And allows your business to run better. So what we focus on not only is just the compliance, that's the work we do on a day-to-day basis, is the compliance aspect and the paperwork and the payroll and those things for a business. What we're really looking to do is add a value to our client by giving their employees an HR department that they'd have in any size company. So a large company, they're going to have an HR department as a resource. So we are the resource for the employees as well, which is different than a lot of PEOs. A lot of them are there for the employer. Most of our calls are actually, about 60% of them are actually from employees, making sure that they have the information that they need, getting the answers to the questions that they need, so they're not bothering somebody like you as a business owner who doesn't have the time to deal with those things and doesn't have the skill set either.
Or doesn't know. I mean, because the landscape shifts so much.
Correct. And right now it's shifting even more. Every day it's shifting. They've got new regulations, or they're enforcing a regulation that they decided that they weren't going to enforce before. Mm-hmm. So it's changing all the time, and healthcare reform is changing it too. So we take over and do all that work and make sure that the business is compliant, and then can also help consult with them on a strategic level of HR. Okay. HR needs to be far more strategic than most companies make it. And the employee population is demanding an employer be more strategic with what they do and offer more to them than just a paycheck.
So in a lot of ways, kind of what you're doing is very similar to what you did before in insurance adjuster. You're kind of managing risk for employers. So is that the sort of natural jump that you made there?
Given the fact that I never wanted to be an insurance adjuster, all that experience really led very well to understanding the risk of being an employer. Yeah. And so I had multiple companies back in 2008, and I was looking for a PEO. And I had a friend that owned one in Michigan, and I called him and said, "Hey, can I be a client?" And he goes, "We don't take clients in the West that are based in the West." I said, "All right." So he told me what to look for, and I knew what I needed. I wanted somebody that was going to take over everything and do it for me. And so as I interviewed PEOs, what I was finding was if I didn't buy their benefit, or if I didn't buy everything from them, they wouldn't support it. They would give me back the money, or they would give it to me and I'd have to still do it. So it wasn't a full solution. I'd still have to staff somebody to do that work. And I was trying to get out of that. So as we looked at it, and I looked around, I went and called him back and said, "Hey, are you sure you don't want to do this?" And he's like, "Yeah, no, we just don't take clients based out there." I'm like, "Okay."
So what was his reason? Why not in the West? That's kind of interesting.
Every state is different with employment law.
Okay.
And so there's certain rules you have as a PEO going into each state. And it's also are you set up to actually be able to service them properly. And so back in 2008, which doesn't seem like that long ago, technology wasn't as what it is today.
Yeah.
So it was harder to do those things and really take care of a client that far away from you. Onboarding employees and doing paperwork and that kind of stuff was labor intensive and was all done by faxes and emails.
Yeah, you say you started your company in 2009. I'm thinking, okay, so you've been around for a year or two.
I know.
I mean, it's gone so fast, and the older I get, the faster it goes. It's nuts.
Well, and I think many of us wanted to forget 3 or 4 years in there too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's all a blur. Anyway.
Yeah.
So you moved on to Ataraxis. What's an ideal client look like for you? Is any small business a potential client, or do you look for a certain industry or size or what?
In the beginning, we were really working with professional service and kind of white collar and some gray collar. We've understood how we need to work, the risk of being a PEO and the risk of being an employer, and we can work with almost any employer now. And so we've been able to set up programs that help with the risk. We've got, one of our clients, good clients, is a good-sized trucking company, which in the beginning we would have never touched because trying to be able to manage that risk from the trucking perspective is difficult. But as we've gone along, plus my background in claims, I understand their risk of their business because I used to work heavy equipment and work with trucking companies. Right. So that's helpful for that. And we have a lot of doctors' offices and a lot of IT and software companies. And so really it just runs the gamut. We're finding clients, the size of the business really is almost now 500 employees and below.
Okay.
And when we're finding with larger companies is that they don't want to staff, they don't want to build a department that's going to be a cost center and that they have to manage. Yeah. And so it's easier for them to find a good strategic HR person in-house to be almost at the C level to help them make decisions about how they're going to train their people, what they're going to do with their people, and then outsource the department work to us.
Well, and our businesses are similar that way because I operate on a similar level with the marketing agency. We focus on digital services, marketing services, search and pay-per-click and content development, and that kind of a thing. And a lot of these companies who are kind of getting into that realm aren't prepared to make the investment to build a complete creative team. It's easier just to hire a CMO and have them source our work and outsource that work to their company. The risk is mitigated. If we don't work out, they can always go and try and find somebody new without sinking a bunch of money into it. So I think our businesses are probably very similar in that way.
Yeah, and in that regard, they can spend more time on the strategic part of the marketing for their business instead of managing people.
Yeah, and the tactical stuff because it can get hairy.
And that's what we find with HR departments is that if you have somebody at that level, they're managing people more on a day-to-day basis, and somebody calls in sick and they've got to figure out how to cover it, they're doing that stuff instead of the actual strategic work of the business, whereas if they outsource it to us, that's not their problem. We're dealing with all those things, and we have to deliver on what we promise and what we say we're going to do, and if we can do that, it's a healthy and great relationship.
Yeah, for sure. So I want to shift the conversation a little bit. I want to talk about a couple of things. One is, and I want to talk about this from a marketing standpoint. How has Obamacare, are you using that as a marketing tool at all? Are you able to create messaging around that's driving business in a certain way? Talk to me a little bit about some of that changing landscape there.
Yeah, I kind of jokingly say I couldn't have written a better law for us.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Whether you agree with it or not, and I'm not a big fan of it on a personal level, but the way it's written, it's onerous for employers. Mm-hmm. There's so much in there. And so, yes, what it's done is it's allowed us to be able to go back to an employer and say, hey, you're going to have to do all this stuff. X, Y, and Z is all things that you have to do. You have to track this information. And it's amazing the amount of information that an employer has to track and report that most employers have never tracked or don't know what to do with, or their systems aren't ready for. And our systems are built to track that information. We already have it all. And since we professionally manage the employee's information, we've already had most of that information before the law even passed.
Yeah.
So now it's taking the software and making sure that it produces what we need to produce. But we're able to manage that for an employer where they're not able to do it themselves, and it's definitely not cost effective for them to do it. And they don't know. They don't have the expertise. Mm-hmm. So that's been really great for us on the marketing side to be able to say, hey, you can outsource all the responsibilities of Obamacare to us and know that you're compliant because we're going to take care of it.
Yeah, I just got about 6 months ago, I finished up an audit with the IRS, and it took about a year for them to go through and audit our company, and it was just mind-numbing. And as we're winding up, my attorney says, we need to start talking about what you guys are going to do for Obamacare. And I want to throw up. I was like, I mean, I'm sitting here, I feel like this weight has been lifted. The IRS is off our back finally. They've dug through everything that they could possibly dig through. We got it all squared away, and I felt like this light, airy feeling. And then my attorney bombshells me with the Obamacare, and I'm like, I just wanted to puke, man.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't know if I can deal with this. So I think you're very well placed in that kind of a market with that sort of messaging to be able to go out and say, listen, and if they don't know it right now, they're going to know how onerous it is and how time consuming and everything. And they're going to throw up their hands and go, yeah, take this off my plate.
And the difference with us versus, a payroll provider or something else is that we're in a position that we have all the information for all parts of it. We manage the benefits. We manage the employee information. We're doing the payroll. So all the pieces that have to be put together, we already have them. And so instead of the business owner, you could go contract with your broker and a payroll company and an HR company. But as the business owner, you're going to have to quarterback all that.
Yeah.
You're going to have to make sure that the information goes from one person to the other and one company to the other, whereas we already have it all. So you get to sit back and be more like the coach with us instead of the actual active player on the field.
Yeah.
So it really replaces that and allows the business to know that they're taken care of and focus on what they need to do.
Right. Okay, so you're kind of using that to your advantage. I want to talk to you a little bit. I know that you guys were on and I see the placard behind you, the Inc. 500 fastest growing company. I want to talk about that from a marketing standpoint. How has that helped your business in going out and landing new clients, or has it?
It has. In the ones that we're going after ourselves, it gives validity. Mm-hmm. It says, hey, yeah, here we're growing fast, and we were 112 around 2014, and we were 1132 on 2015. So we've had a lot of growth.
Yeah,
and so it allows people to say, hey, you've grown fast enough, and people have confidence in your business that they're coming on. So that's been a good validation for who we're talking to. On the flip side of things, the exposure that it gave us has been great. We've picked up clients all over the country because of that. They saw us and said, hey, we want to work with your company because obviously you're growing quickly and you're progressive and you're new. A lot of companies in our business have been around a long time. And so their technology is a little bit older, or the way they do things is a little bit older, and we've had to look at things differently since the very beginning. We started the company in 2009. We were about to take our first client. We took our first client in July of 2010. Obamacare passed in March of 2010. Mm-hmm. So I had to really evaluate, and I speak a lot on Obamacare, healthcare reform, because I had to get in and understand if it was going to destroy the business that I was just about to start.
Yeah.
Because a lot of our industry thought it was going to do just that. And I realized that it actually was going to be a very good thing for our business because it's going to tie all these things together and really make an employer do a lot more than they've had to do before and force the agencies to actually go and enforce the rules that they have. Mm-hmm. And that's been, on the bad side, as an employer myself, on the bad side of things, it's the government is more active now than they've ever been. And it's all driven by healthcare reform, and not the health part of it or the healthcare part of it, but the regulatory part of it, with the IRS and the Department of Labor.
Yeah, well, you don't have to talk to me about the IRS regulatory side. I know all about that. Going through that stupid audit, it was a pain in the butt. So I wanted to ask you. I had something else I was going to ask you, and I totally forgot what it was. How many employees do you guys have right now?
Internally, we have 14.
14, so, and where So internally, so you have outside, like...
Yeah, so I say internally because we co-employ them. So legally, if the IRS looks at us or the government looks at us, they see about 14 to 1,500 employees is the size of our company underneath our EIN number, because it's all reported underneath ours. So I say internally, meaning the people that work on the actual work of what we do, we have 14 internal employees.
So because technically the way the PEO works is you hire the employee for your client and they just source them from you. That's right?
No, it's a co-employment. Okay. So let's take your business, for instance. I came in and worked with you. I would co-employ your employees, and I would take over the legal responsibilities for the tax compliance, the labor compliance, all the different compliance aspects and the government aspects of being an employer. Okay. You are still the full legal employer of those people for the day-to-day activity. Okay. So it wouldn't change the way you do things. Whereas if you source people from somebody, you are restricted on what you can do with that employee by a contract, and it says you can only do X, Y, and Z.
So that would be more like for like a temp agency type of a setup.
This is a long-term solution where we're both a legal employer of the employee, so you have the right to say what they can do no matter what. Okay, gotcha. Are you having fun? I love what I do.
Yeah.
It's one of those where like I said earlier, I took the 15 years that I spent in claims and risk management and was able to take that experience of looking at something and understanding the risk of a business and looking at it from a different perspective. We aren't HR people. My business partner and I aren't HR people. We're business guys. And I was doing more of the business part of things in the claims company than claims work the last few years. I figured out that I could improve my margin by about 5% in that business if I ran these things better. So when I was looking for a partner, I wasn't looking for somebody to really come in and change a bunch of stuff. I was looking to find a partner to hand it over to say, let me continue to do what I'm doing and run my business better by having you do this. Yeah. And so we take a different approach with a business owner, and we go out and actually talk to them about their business. We want to know what's going on because there's a lot of things that we can help with from just a strategic side of, hey, I'm looking to do this kind of thing. Well, watch out for these things, or build it and design it this way because it makes more sense and it's going to work better. So we don't want to just be answering HR questions. We're really a partner in the business with our client.
Yeah,
make it so they run better.
That reminds me of a guy named Cavett Robert. He's an old school copywriter. He used to say that business owners in particular, they're walking around in a lot of cases with an umbilical cord in their hand looking for a place to plug it in. Yeah. And if you can be a place for them to plug it in, they're going to stick with you forever. Yep. Well, good deal. Okay, it looks like our time's just about up. That went pretty fast.
It did.
Yeah. I do appreciate you being on today. If somebody wants to get in touch with you, if they want to get in touch with your company, what's the best way to do that?
Our website is Ataraxis, which is ATARAXISPEO.com. Okay. My email is SCILLEY@ataraxispeo.com.
Okay, and I'll make sure I drop a link to your website in the description below this video on YouTube, so that people need to get in touch with you as they can. But Stephen, thanks again for being on. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks, Toby. I appreciate you asking.
And thank you guys for watching again. This is the V Squared Creative Podcast. Tune in next time.